Houston, we have a problem.
I feel the need for speed. Ow!
My mom always said life is like a box of chocolates.
Help me help you.
You are a toy!
My team is dead!
There's no crying in baseball!
Relax. This pod is making you aggressive. You complete me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of We Bought a Mic, a podcast about Tom and Tom again.
Mm-hmm.
One last time. Everybody just heard the song, the theme song, bringing us back to the memories of our series.
What's the series called again?
Tom v. Tom, A Tale of Two Toms. Cruisemas with the Hanks, Tom and Tom again. We're looking back. We're wrapping up the series. We're celebrating. We got champagne. We're about to pop it.
I could sense the sadness in your voice there as you.
It's a melancholy. It's a bittersweet.
Yeah.
You know. It was a big part of our lives for the past year and a half.
It was.
And now we got to close the chapter.
I gotta say, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah,
Welcome.
absolutely.
My name's Ernest.
I feel like we're the violin players on the Titanic going down.
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure playing with you boys.
My name's Tom.
Ernest,
Hunter.
Ernest, I'm so scared about the way you're doing this right now.
Ernest,
the way
just
he's
give me-
opening this champagne
Ernie,
bottle
just
is
give me
pure.
Just give me a knife so that I can just do you have like a saber? Oh, there we go. That was a good pop. All right.
Nice.
Struggled a little bit.
That thing has been sitting. It's been brewing in my fridge for a month and a half since New Year's.
If people watch the WBAMs, we had a very unfortunate experience with the champagne on that episode. So
It wasn't champagne, so that was
it
part
was
of the problem.
not. So we're stepping it up.
Okay.
Pouring it up.
What a head on the champagne.
No, that's not. I think that one's yours.
Yeah, I think
Actually,
it's yours.
I think you put one for you.
So Ernie, I gotta criticize your pouring method here.
I'm doing it the European way. You never heard about this?
You think that? You heard about this? Is that like I have actually from used to working in a bar seen people who pour their pitcher of beer just straight up in because it is better for your tummy.
Exactly.
To get all those bubbles in.
Yes.
It's also kind of wasteful.
That's why Europeans aren't bloated, because they expel the carbonation at the glass level, not at the throat esophagus level. So you'll thank me later when you're not burping up champagne.
I
on the
love
pod.
I love burping. Wow, Hunter was criticizing Ernest,
And I did over
Just
for it. And
absolutely
you know what I
fucking
will
blew
say?
it.
This is a
You know, you should have, Hunter, you should have tried to pop the champagne with your fucked up hand.
I should have.
That would have actually been
I
better,
just like
better content for the
break
pod.
my other fucking hand. I would do it for Tom. And listen, and isn't it only appropriate that I'm willing to put my body on the line for the podcast, much like Tom is willing to put his body on the line?
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Salute.
Salute.
All right. So the way we're going to do this is we're kind of duplicating the outline that we had for the Robin Williams wrap-up episode, where we sort of looked back on the series and did top 5, bottom 5, lessons learned, that kind of thing. On that episode, shout out to Becca, who was our guest, who joined us when she did her YouTube series watching every single Robin Williams movie. So if you're out there and you've watched every single Tom Cruise and Tom Hanks movie, if that person exists, let us know. And maybe we can have you on the pod, because that was the standard, right? That Becca said she watched every single one, and we couldn't find that person.
Yeah.
So it's just us. We just watched 26 movies, 13 from each actor. And like I said, it was over the course of about a year and a half. The point of this episode is just to close the book and commemorate our achievements. So I think the best place to start is I want to hear some thoughts on, like, what you guys feel like we set out to do. Obviously, these guys are titans of Hollywood. So that goes without saying. Like, we're watching some of the most acclaimed, well-known movies that have been made in the last half century of Hollywood. But also, how, as we went along, how your perspectives changed. Not just like what you felt like going into it, but how you felt as it was going, and how your perspective might have shifted, and if things surprised you. Like, what were some kind of takeaways from the series?
I think I need to start with an apology to my boys here, and I'll say it to Tom Cruise, because initially he was in the bracket that ultimately the voters
Went for Robin,
including myself, went with Robin Williams. I was campaigning hard against Tom Cruise because
he was the finalist that lost.
Yeah.
It was him and Robin in the final, right?
I think
I think,
Will
or was
Smith.
it Hanks?
I thought Will Smith was
I'll look it
weirdly
up.
in there too. I can't remember, but
I had a vision in my head of an actor who was not very versatile and was not used in a variety of ways. I was envisioning us doing like 10 different Mission Impossible movies. And I just was
Just Ethan Hunt over and over again.
listen, that still might be in the cards.
in my head not excited. And after all of this, I'm not going to say that he's a chameleon of a fucking actor, but I would urge anyone who feels negatively about Tom Cruise as an actor to go back to the 80s. And that's where you're going to find a lot of the depth. He's got two different peaks going on in his career. Because if we're looking chronologically at the movies we covered, he's coming out the gate so hot in the 80s and like fully peaking like 80s into early 90s already. I was more than familiar with the legendary Hanks 90s run, which is like, known as maybe the greatest run any actor has ever had in film as far as success and just choosing good projects goes. But I mean, we started off the series going Top Gun, Color of Money, Rain Man, Born on the 4th of July,
Heaters,
A Few Good Men, just Cruise's movies.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's absolutely insane.
a lot of versatility.
Yeah, it's not
working with big filmmakers.
Yeah, it's not versatility that like you would describe. If we're talking about like some character actor who like is unrecognizable
Just the
from role
types
to role.
of movies.
But well, yeah, and also like it. By the time we get to like when we're alive and conscious for when Tom Cruise movies are coming out,
late 90s.
I think a lot of the roles he was getting, he was just sort of doing like karaoke of his past self. When like in the 80s, early 90s is when he had fucking vigor.
Mm-hmm.
Like he had energy, he had that spunk. All these movies revolve around him being a guy with spunk and something to prove and kind of too much energy. And to the point that he gets himself in trouble. Mm-hmm. Really, really impressive stuff. Really compelling stuff. So I want to give some flowers to Cruise because we are eventually this episode going to talk about the Oprah couch jump.
Yeah, I was going to say
there's just no way around it, and it might undo
the
everything that I just said. Might get completely undone by it.
No, but it is the thing that where we are ending this series is interesting to note, and we'll get more into it later on of what happens in 2005 and how
the post series
Tom kind of
time
undoes a lot of the goodwill that he had spent 15 plus years
we picked a
building up.
very particular time frame for this series.
Which I mean, I think
frame.
I do think that's the Tom frame does kind of apply to Hanks as well. We'll talk about Hanks's choices after this because it's interesting that you use the word like karaoke because I would almost say that was a little bit of my concern, not so much with this series because the Hanks 90s run is legendary, but whenever you're thinking of modern day Hanks, it's him doing derivative versions of characters that he has played before. Hanks is not somebody who has like wanted to challenge himself in movies in a very long time, where I don't think Tom does either as far as like an acting perspective. His thing is like, I'll just challenge my body to the limits of the human condition.
Hanks also has not tried, at least as far as I can see, he has not like tried to preserve the way that he looks in any meaningful way. And so I think that he's casting a lot of roles that are like, listen, you just look at this guy and you like him. And that's not the case anymore, unfortunately. He looks different than he used to. Very different.
Well, it's also a thing, too, where it's interesting pairing these two together. because they're almost on these parallel tracks throughout the 90s. And that's really the bulk of what we're going to be talking about today is their dual 90s runs that they're having with each other, because it's two different ways to be a movie star. I think that Cruise is much more of the traditional Hollywood role. And I say traditional in the sense of guy, he's got that young spunkiness. He's willing to take risks. He's attaching himself to smart filmmakers. And then it's like, okay, this is cool. Maybe I'm not like winning an Oscar, but I am getting critically beloved and taking chances that I'm being loved by the masses. How can I now parlay that into mega stardom? And I think Cruise as a movie star is pretty unassailable as just one of the best movie stars that we've ever had. Like you can just put him on the ranks with your, I would put him over even like a Harrison Ford, but like even like your Denzels or something like that. Just as far as like what you think of whenever you think of movie star. Hanks, on the other hand, I'm not going to say that I wasn't expecting an incredible time from Hanks, but I still got a lot more out of Tom Hanks as an actor throughout the series because of he has a little bit of range of his own. Like it's not just what we now thinks of the Hanksisms. I think that whenever we talked about like how many Hanks out of 5 is this, his fluctuated a lot more than even Tom's, because it's like, well, what era of Hanks are we getting? Are we getting like early 90s kind of snarky goofball? Are we getting like a little bit smarmy, a little bit feeling himself Hanks? He doesn't graduate into being like dad mode until the back half of the series that we got here.
Yeah, it's the last couple really where that happens, like Castaway, Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, I mean, what you said about the 90s run is so true for Hanks, because it just begs to be a series. Like that's kind of why we did this. When you just look at the run that Hanks had in the 90s, that you just want to do a podcast series recapping that.
Yeah.
And then to bundle it with Cruise, that has to be the other side of the coin because of the movie star point that you brought up. And I think that these two embody the ideal figure of like what the Hollywood movie star should be, or at least what it was during this time. You know, now that we're getting into the 2020s and you have things like, you have Timmy, right? Like that's a completely different flavor, but our Toms embodied the highs of the action, uber exciting mega star and the friendly, lovable, relatable, calming figure that people wanted to gravitate towards when going to the movies.
I think that's another thing that is kind of lost and this can be said of both Toms. As you're thinking about in the modern day, so many actors, even if they are very good, just don't really know how to pick projects and don't really know where to attach themselves to. And I think that is, to give a huge credit to both of them, is they're just like, yes, I will attach myself to this Spielberg film. Oh, cool. Demi is making a new
it's
film.
Their power. It's the power. Not every actor has this kind of decision-making power. Yeah. They have to bend.
No, but what I was going to say is like it's in the wrong hands. It can just be a thing where you're just like, I grant like there isn't a Marvel in the same way in the 90s as there is today, but there were other like schlocky engines that they could have thrown themselves into being part of like some shitty reboot of something, but they knew to always stay with the directors. And even towards the end here of the series, where there are like a couple of missteps, is it a bad idea to try and take part in a John Woo movie? Is it a bad idea to take part in a Cameron Crowe movie coming off of Almost Famous? Like, no, you can still kind of figure out what the thought process was behind it. And that, I mean, to tie it back into Timmy, like you were just bringing up before, Timmy is kind of following this roadmap where he's just like, unless it's just like, I'm going to come in and do like a bit part and be like the 12th guy so people can be like, oh, look, it's Timothée Chalamet, which I think he's kind of graduated out of doing that now at this point. He is only looking to things where either he gets to work with a renowned master filmmaker or he is the IP.
Right.
Like he is like, well, no, I'm Bob Dylan now.
Yeah.
So
the thing that surprised me the most, I think, was how versatile the gradations were throughout. It's kind of the same point that you were making, Drew, about like the fear of kind of watching the same type of performance over and over.
Yeah,
that's not really what went down.
No, and I think we were definitely feeling that way partially because we started doing this whole premise with Nick Cage, who does everything in the world, and then Robin Williams, who was in like such a bizarre variety of movies, right?
But
And
also,
we're like, well, these guys are a lot more consistent in like what they deliver. And
Yeah.
even then, like they're, you know, actors act like they switch it up.
yeah, Robin especially, I think we got a little bit burned by, and that's okay.
That's,
Like,
I mean,
it's a
we
thing.
lot of stinkers.
we picked some poop ass movies.
I mean,
for
that
Robin.
wasn't, it's not entirely his fault, but I do think that like Robin, for all the credit in the world to what he was able to do the Robin Williams thing better than anybody, but it is a much more narrow lane we're talking about here than when comparing them to these two. And maybe it's not even fair to compare them to
I think that the thing that did surprise me the most just leads into top 5, bottom 5.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the movies themselves, the performances themselves, the stuff that I had never seen before, the movies I had never seen before, obviously those were the things that really surprised me the most as we were moving along. So if we want to move directly into that, I wanted to split this up a little bit. Obviously, like we can do our least favorites, sandwich it in there. But as far as like top 5 movies go, we can share like top 5 Cruise movies, top 5 Hanks movies. We can split it up that way for sure. But I'm more interested in hearing the split between the top 5 movies overall and the top 5 performances, because I think those two are quite different. There might be some overlap. Obviously, a great performance can make a great movie, and I can slot a movie in both lists and not have it be exclusive.
So are we doing 4 total lists here, or are we doing top 5 both Toms?
We can split it as many ways as you want. If you wanna divorce it by Tom, that's fine with me. I bundled them together.
All right, let's bundle them.
I bundled them as well.
I only have so many lists in my head.
Right. So my favorite movie of the series was Toy Story. Like
That's my number one.
You can't go wrong with Toy Story.
It's like it is the greatest animated movie ever made. It changed. We did a whole episode on it, going deep into it. It's one of the most important movies in the history of Hollywood.
My favorite performance is Born on the 4th of July.
Do we have the same top 2? We do have the same.
Are you
top
serious?
2. I also have Born the 4th of July as my number 1 performance.
Where are you at, Drew?
My number 1 performance is Big.
Wow. I have Big in my top 4. My top 3.
It's one of the most unique. It's easily one of the most top 3 most challenging performances, and in a way different way than Born on the 4th of July. Born on the 4th of July is like a very clearly challenging role. Big is like, it's one of those roles that like quietly 99% of the time would be a nightmare, like would just be a bad performance.
Big is in my top 5.
It's
I put
phenomenal.
Big. I put Big at 4. I have it at 4. Do you have it in your top 5?
I have it at 4 as well.
Oh, okay.
God, how much of a carryover is going to be on our list? No, I have it. I agree with you that it's impossible. And like whenever we're talking about early on in the series, what are you looking for out of Hanks? Big kind of defined what that was, of just like, it's that boyish charm trapped in a 6-foot man's body.
And it's a pitch that you can't deliver. Like not any actor can sell this idea.
No,
Right.
not at all. Especially, like watching in retrospect, like all the problematic stuff just kind of washes away because you're just so charmed.
It's in the context of the movie, it's not problematic.
and
it's problematic when you like read the synopsis.
Well, and you know, props to Penny Marshall too, because she directed the shit out of that movie.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It blew me out of the fucking water. It's such a good movie.
But I do think that is a movie where if you divorce the performance from the film itself, it could go, even with Penny Marshall, it could go wrong so many different ways. So whenever you're talking about like the best performance and who's having to do the most heavy lifting, Big is, it's got to be right up there mentioned, because it's what you think of when you think about the movie.
Yeah.
Similarly, when I think about Born on the 4th of July, I think about Cruise, and I think about like how it's like one of those things where I don't really know anybody else who in 1989, is that when it was? it is hitting Cruise right in this perfect zone. And it's so funny that this is coming off of Rain Man. I almost like married the two together in my head because they came out a year apart from each other.
Yeah, Rain
and
Man's
people think
88.
like, oh, this is what Cruise is, and Cruise is able to go so far the other direction, gives such a different performance. This is one of the ones that, even though like we talked about on the Jerry Maguire episode, the highway robbery that happens there. This is like, if you're just redoing the Oscars, you're just giving the best actor to Tom Cruise here,
Right.
like just 10 times out of 10.
And maybe even best director.
Yeah, to
Oliver
Stone.
too. Yeah, this one just stuck with me the entire time. Like nothing really crept up to dethrone it. Obviously, like Toy Story was always there because of, childhood and just forever. But I'd never seen Born on the 4th of July before doing this series. And that was by far my biggest surprise. It's just how much this movie resonated with me, decades after.
No, but I did just want to say, Oliver Stone did win Best Director for Born on the 4th of July.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It's immaculately directed. Also won editing, and it's incredibly edited.
So it deservedly got some acclaim at the Oscars.
I personally, it's not my favorite performance.
Do you have it in your top 5 of either?
I don't think so. I think because it's such a physically transformative role, I could see other actors doing it. If that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Yeah, like I could see all it takes. Like there's a short list of actors who like really commit, who I could see doing it. You know what I mean? Maybe
you could slot like a Dustin Hoffman in there easily. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That said, I mean, still very impressive. My favorite movie out of all these was and is Jerry Maguire. It's I don't think it's the best on this list. It's just my favorite.
I will say Jerry Maguire's.
It's worthy number one.
Jerry Maguire is the only movie that I have that is in both top 5s for performance and for movie.
Yeah, it's also my number 2 performance, just because that is it might. I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at the list. Is this as close to human as Tom Cruise gets in his life?
I mean, Rain Man is pretty human.
Yeah, but it's like a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
he's a
Jerry Maguire
fucking
is
asshole. Rain Man's
kind of
also-
an asshole,
I mean,
too.
spoiler: Rain Man's in my top 5 performances because he's so good, being like that, like fast talking fucking prick.
You don't think that Lestat the Eternal Vampire is the normal, regular guy?
That was the most like toxic girlfriend that he ever was.
Yeah.
Like he was like a BPD hottie girlfriend.
Cunty wife.
Yeah. He was serving cunt. But yeah, Jerry Maguire, the rare movie named after the fictional character. It's a rare thing. The only other time we saw it in this was Forrest Gump. Again, similar time frame, another insanely iconic performance. Is that on either of any of your lists?
Sure as
Jerry?
No,
No.
Forrest Gump.
Oh,
Forrest Gump is not
woof.
on either.
Sorry,
It's fine. It's like in the middle. It's not
outside the top 10
Okay.
for both.
So
Jerry is in my 5 for both. I have Jerry at 3 for performances and 4 for films.
Oh my God, do we have the same list for performance? I have Jerry at my number 3. Ernie, what's your number 2 for performances?
Castaway.
Is it Castaway? Son of a bitch.
Castaway is fucking amazing.
I mean, again, talking to like your point about what you mentioned about Big, don't know anybody else who could actually make Castaway work. And I have problems with Castaway as a movie. I don't think that it's like a perfect movie by any means. I think there are like a lot of issues with it, but
Hanks is perfect in it.
that middle chunk,
Yeah.
when it's just Hanks, is
Unreal.
perfect. That is masterful. And
that's-
you can't beat that.
that's my number 3. It could easily be my number 2. He's the only guy in the world that I'm watching on that island. Like he just was born to.
It's unbelievable. He makes it look so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like Zemeckis is peaking here. Zemeckis made peak, and I just don't see it. I mean, obviously, the point you're making about it, maybe there is a little bit of room for improvement here and there, but gut check it. I don't see it working out better. Right? Yeah. Like maybe there is some kind of alternate dimension where this movie is a 10 out of 10 and not like a 9.5. But the way it's rendered, it's like you just get this feeling of like, oh my God, this is the perfect version of it, right? Even if you can poke holes in it, you get this feeling of like, I don't see this being done better than this.
Yeah.
It feels like a home run. It's one of those movies that it just sweeps you off your feet, right? Even if there is a little bit of clunk here and there.
No, I 100% agree with that. So
I actually have Castaway outside the 5 for films.
I have it.
It's at 6.
I have it at number 9 on like my overall list of movies. Still a very good movie, but I do think there are some core issues with it. So I think we've gone all kinds of out of order with this list. But
Yeah,
we've covered like the top 4
for you guys.
I will say for you, where are you at? What's your number? Your number 4.
My number 4, what?
What haven't
movie
you
and
said?
performance.
If you go like 1, you start. So you did Jerry Maguire number 1. Then what's your number 2?
For favorite movies in the series, I've been waffling.
Is it one on movies and performances? Jerry
No, number 1 for performance was Big.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Big. Then Jerry.
We act like we didn't just do like, I don't know, like 9 hours of podcasting on list making for the last month.
This is less official. This isn't going into like
It all
the
leaves my head
shrine.
instantly. My third favorite movie in the whole series is Catch Me If You Can. It's one of my favorite movies.
Nice.
I think it gets better the more you watch it. Partially the more you understand it and the more you like understand Spielberg and like, how much he's just a hurt little boy. And that sort of leads you
the fablements of it all.
Yeah. And it leads you to forgiving the sappiness of the movie. Cause you're like I might think it's a little sappy, but for this guy, like it's real as fuck.
The tough thing with this movie for this series is that it's such a Leo movie that I don't want to put it up in the top 5 because it's like
the Hanks of it is
it's an incredible movie, but yeah,
we talked about the accent and what the hell that accent is. But it's
knock knock.
No, but you are right. Like I bumped this movie down on my Spielberg rankings whenever we watched it.
Just a hair.
Part of the series. Just a hair. One, because the first time I saw it, I was like, this is a top 5 Spielberg movie. This movie's a masterpiece. The way that the first time you see a lot of Spielberg movies, you feel that way. But also I think it is because of watching it through the Tom Hanks lens. And this is really Leo saying like, I am here. I have arrived.
It's an incredible Leo. One of the best Leo performances. If we ever do a Leo series, like 45 years from now. My Spielberg pick is Saving Private Ryan. Like that is the one that became solidified. I always loved it growing up, but in this series, it became crystallized as like a true 10 out of 10.
I came to realize rewatching it that it's better than I remembered.
Yeah.
And it's like a near perfect movie that is just like, as we were talking about how because it can't be pigeonholed the way his other classics can as being like the blank movie, because it can't be the war movie because there isn't one. Like it can't have quite that legacy. And it also, it's a tale of two different styles within the same movie. And so if you fall in love with the beginning, then you're not going to like the end.
Right.
It's such a good fucking movie.
Yeah.
It's my, I'll give it, I think, my number 4.
I have it at 3 for films. I kept it.
Y'all both have it.
It's
a
really
solid amount higher than I do. I do love it a lot more after seeing a rewatch. But yeah, I don't know. It's another movie where it's an ensemble movie, so it's hard to judge it and the Hanks of it all.
I kept it out of the 5 for performances.
Right. If my highest ranking Spielberg movie for performance and for a film is Minority Report.
Yeah. That's not my number 5. Do we have the exact same?
No,
top
I
5?
don't have Minority Report in my top 5. I have it at for the actual movie rankings, I have it at 7.
So I don't
have a Spielberg in my top 5.
I put Minority Report at number 5 for performances.
We don't really need like both of you guys to be here.
Hey, no, I have a different number 5. I have a different number 5.
Well, one of us has a broken finger.
Yeah.
So
that's how we differentiate ourselves from each other. My number 5 performance is actually Sleepless in Seattle.
Oh,
Yeah, let's go. Hey, that's mine.
Oh, well,
I
okay.
actually.
So we don't need both of you
Okay,
here.
so I'm just derivative of the two of you guys combined.
Damn.
It's
Great performance.
and the thing is that I know I'm on an island here that I actually like You've Got Mail more than Sleepless in Seattle as a
That's
movie.
crazy. You're being crazy.
I think that's like a more fun movie, even though, but just watch it and just know that you're not watching it for Hanks. Hanks in You've Got Mail is nowhere near my top 5. But just as a movie, I enjoyed that one a little bit more. But as far as performance goes, sad widowed dad Hanks is just
It
incredible.
works really well.
It works so well. It is something that you fall in love with him and his voice, and like you are the Meg Ryan in that situation. You are saying they're just like, oh my God, who is this man? I need to like be a part of his life. And that is the magic of Tom Hanks in so many different ways.
And especially, his son being a little shit, running away.
Yeah.
You got to fall in love with him to be like, oh,
Just gotta fall in love with him.
So I might be wrong, but I think my number 4 performance and my number 5 movie is Rain Man.
okay.
Nice.
Yeah, you were big on this.
I'm a huge Rain Man fan.
The most normal episode that we did. Listeners want to go back.
You definitely
and listen to our-
had to do no edit work whatsoever.
just a
on it.
very just down the middle conversation about Rain Man.
Yeah.
Release the Rain Man cut.
Who's ranked 4th? 4th? Oh, 4th of course is Rain Man. Rain Man's an incredible movie. It's the type of thing where it almost reminds me of Philadelphia in some ways, where like Hanks got obviously the juicier role in Philadelphia, but Denzel is, I think,
Cooking.
head and shoulders doing better than Hanks. I think in that movie it's because of the way it's written. That movie is doing a lot of hand holding for like intolerant people, which ultimately I think is why it didn't end up making any of our lists. Like back then it served quite a utility.
Yeah.
But
it was important.
Yeah. But I found myself getting very impatient with how, they put on like the little kid gloves to deal with homosexuality.
It's still a beautiful movie.
I know. It's just frustrating. It's just really frustrating to watch us like have to like watch Denzel be a piece of shit for like an hour. That said, while you're watching him, you're like, God, he's so good at this. He's
and then Hanks,
fucking good.
He deserves the fucking Oscar for that performance.
He's awesome. But
very
so
worthy.
Rain Man's the same type of deal though, where like Hoffman is like the Oscar role, but my God, Cruise is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Chris is like, I got to figure out how to make money on this.
he is holding that movie together. Like he spends, for all the rambling that Hoffman is doing, Cruise is fucking rambling just as much. He is fast talking like a absolute motherfucker throughout the entire movie. Levinson is like off like eating food or something. He's just like, all right, and action, and then he walks away and just lets it roll for like 3 minutes.
Yeah. Which is what you want for like these two together at this point.
Yeah, and soon we'll see that same magic, except both roles will be
See, I'm holding space in my top 5 for
Robert De Niro.
the Alto Nights coming to theaters. Or,
I noticed you kept that off your draft.
yeah,
your
I
hype
know.
draft.
I just didn't have the space.
It's just a really, really cool like double performance movie. You really get to see like a big feeling movie that has like a decent budget and made a fuckload of money be that shaggy and just be kind of two guys performing for the whole movie.
It's crazy
So
that
cool.
practically no like maybe if we do bottom 5, like maybe there are a couple movies that like really aged poorly all these years later, and I was worried that Rain Man was going to be one of those, and it's just not at all. Like it's what a 35-year-old almost 40-year-old movie, and it still plays great.
Well, it looks so good. It's shot so wide. It's just well done in a variety of ways. But speaking toward I think Rain Man is the movie of these that's most similar to the current construction of the Orlando Magic, Hunter.
Oh, okay. It's just two big men.
It's just the two guys.
And you just like,
and everyone else.
You're like, can we please get them some support?
Yeah.
And it's like, if we got them some support, this could be like all timer. And it doesn't quite reach that.
You know who was the general manager of Rain Man? Jeff Weltman, GM of the Orlando Magic.
Okay, same guy.
That guy doesn't make trades. He will not get a third guy.
Yeah, they're just like, is Billy Bob around? They're like, no, we can't.
Nope.
we can't call. So we have a lot of carryover in our performances. My top 5s do have some diversity from you guys. My number 3 is Eyes Wide Shut.
For performance?
No, for film.
Okay,
for movie
that's my
overall.
number 5 movie.
It's really it's like 6 or 7 for me.
So it's like
It's so
this is a
good.
movie that I hadn't seen it since high school. I think maybe early college, but it had been like over 10 years since seeing this movie, and it's just masterful. Like I think that it is kind of a Shaggy masterpiece in so many ways.
It's creepy. It's weird. It's sexy.
It's kind of like genre
off-putting.
fluid a little bit. You don't really know. You are fully on edge scene to scene, and you don't really know what you're getting into. It feels clunky in a way, but it all works together for this tone of the movie. It's so perfect that this really ended up being the last Kubrick movie because it has so many Kubrickisms kind of jam-packed in it. And I think Cruise at the center, Cruise and Kidman are just masterful.
Kubrick was able to make a different movie every time, even for all the isms, all the locked off camera shots, the things that you're gonna get in a Kubrick movie, the certain type of dialogue delivery, the kind of the coldness that he brought. Every movie of his felt incredibly unique, and this one was the one that killed him. It ended him.
Well, he was killed because of it.
They got him.
Yeah, the letter.
And watching it, it feels like you're watching something you're not supposed to. That was like one of the biggest takeaways. It felt like you're peering into a world that you're not supposed to see. Like he brought a camera into a place that cameras are not allowed.
And it does have that, transcendental cinema, like easiest but hardest to execute cheat code of all time, which is that like when you really, really slow every line and every takedown, like you feel like you're on fucking drugs.
Yeah. It ended a marriage.
The entire time you're watching this movie, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why are they talking like that? Why isn't Nicole Kidman talking like that in particular?
The way that she just talks like this.
And talking about
There
like
were dicks everywhere.
And we were laughing at you. Just
So good.
I don't care what Cruise says publicly. That I know that shit tore him apart.
Yeah.
I know it ruined his brain forever. It's
Thanks, Stan.
it's a really, really incredible.
Tom wasn't
movie.
jumping on any couches after that during that press tour.
Well, it all connects.
Yeah.
It all led to the same place.
A top 10 movie for me. I don't know about performance, but that I hadn't seen before is Mission Impossible 1.
That is my number 5. And we can only be true to ourselves, really.
It's a great movie.
Brian De Palma, baby.
Yeah, man. It's one of those where you watch it and you're like, oh, like this series was on really unsteady footing until we got McQuarrie taking over. The most different feel possible to the one immediately preceding it.
Unreal.
MI2 is so fucking weird.
We might talk about MI2, unfortunately.
Yeah, but MI1 is really, really great. I'd say, toward the end, they may have bit off more than they could chew effects wise. And so it kind of, I have to ding it a little bit for that.
Yeah.
It looks so bad.
Well, I think
in the tunnel with the helicopter.
Honestly, it's just one of those things that's like, if we just didn't have that moment, then I think that this movie would be pretty unimpeachable.
There's some scenes that or some shots in that scene that look good.
No, yeah. Well, a lot of the stuff that is all inside looks good. It's just the helicopter in the
It's like a
tunnel
screensaver.
is the worst thing you've
It's
ever
a
seen in
Windows
your life.
98 screensaver.
But I think like if you are able to separate that one image and how like stupid it looks, I also think we are grading on a curve we have to keep in mind, because now if they did that, McQuarrie was doing that, then Tom Cruise would actually just be flying a helicopter in between it and in a train tunnel.
Which apparently they did for Fallout, and they just cut it out of the movie. So release the helicopter cut.
Listen, who knows? There's still time. There's still one more Final Reckoning.
There
so who
is
knows?
a final reckoning.
Yeah,
did we hit
that's
all
my number 5.
all the top 5?
No, there's a big one that's my number 4 that I'm surprised that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's A Few Good Men.
Okay, yeah, you were.
I don't think that this movie. I don't think that it could have been in the top 5 performances, because I don't think that. I mean, I think Cruise as Kaffee is pretty iconic, especially whenever we're talking about this time period of Cruise.
And just the fact that like Cruise isn't a theater actor, and like that's what he's being given theater material.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think that we judge him a little bit unfairly because of his chemistry or lack thereof with Demi Moore. But I do think that's. everything about this movie, just as far as a film, as far as the script goes, is
Sorkin.
so spot on. Like, it is a perfect piece of screenwriting. The character actor, or not the character actors, but the acting that you were getting there and these characters that you're meeting. Obviously, there's Nicholson with Colonel Jessup. Of you need me on that wall.
You can't handle the truth.
That all. But even like Kevin Bacon as like this, you know, representing the man kind of side lawyer, Kiefer, our boy Kevin Pollak, fucking our boy James Marshall.
You still need to tap into Kiefer's return to the lawyer movie genre in Juror Number 2.
I do need to.
Kiefer's
tap
in
into
that?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's a very small role.
How is his alcoholism face?
Well, if you had tapped in, you would know that it
worse.
plays a role in the plot of the film.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Damn.
Crucial
Clint.
role.
Clint's kind of just putting his thumb on
Good movie.
on a little bit. No, I think A Few Good Men is an incredible movie. Like, I love this movie. It's a movie. It's like a big cable watch. And whenever you kind of take out the memification of it that has happened over the years, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, this is why we kind of stopped doing courtroom dramas in a lot of ways, because it's hard to beat the highs that this movie reaches, where it's just lawyers talking about malpractice in a courtroom. You just don't see it anymore.
Sorkin, just stay in the fucking courtroom.
Stay in the fucking courtroom. Unless it's about the trial of the Chicago 7. Then maybe get out of that courtroom.
Damn. Yeah. Really
maybe
specific courtrooms.
Maybe don't trust. Maybe Sorkin, how about you stay off like the topic of race? Maybe
You know,
that's not what we want to hear you touch on.
If just strike all that, Sorkin, just stay away.
No, he did.
Social
write
Network
a good,
2 coming.
He did write a good op-ed about Mitt Romney.
Yeah,
being
about how the Democrats should run
nominee.
Mitt Romney for
That
president.
was good. You know, maybe we should have done
That was good. Yeah.
Maybe Mitt Romney could be president right now.
I have never seen like a stronger sign that someone like it's time to like take him behind the barn and shoot him in the head.
Well, I was chatting.
Like you're fucking done, Aaron.
I was
You
chatting
fucking
with
idiot.
friend of the pod, Adam, the other night about Social Network 2 and how like Fincher probably wouldn't do it, but Sorkin would direct it.
Oh my
And
God.
how
Disaster.
atrocious
Yeah.
the Social Network sequel would be if it was a Sorkin directed effort. But what if Jesse Eisenberg came back and like help punch up the script and maybe he ghost directed a little bit?
He wants nothing to do with Zuckerberg. Yeah. Like he does not want to be associated with that man.
Few Good Men, though, it's a Rob Reiner film. One of the most 90s guys that you could have.
Yeah.
So,
whatever happened to Demi Moore, huh?
oh,
God,
I heard
I
she
hope that
has
things
a
work
new
out
one
for her.
coming out.
Want to give a
Just
shout
came
out to two Cruise performances that are both in my top 10, but toward the bottom is just coming out the gate in our series, Top Gun and Color of Money.
Yep.
He's on fire. Like he's coming out and it's him, I think, playing someone close to what he is in real life, which is a guy who has too much commitment and too much energy and zeal, like, and it's all going into the one thing he loves, but it's enough that it's like more than what is productive, and so he's getting himself in trouble. Literally both roles. Color of Money, very different because there's this weird like vulnerability to his character that I didn't see coming. Strange movie. It's aged great in some ways and like not incredibly in others. You can kind of feel why it's gone off the map a little bit. I think Billiards maybe hasn't aged great as a subject of a movie, but that's a cool performance. To sort of like give himself over to this really fucking bizarro character who's like cucked, like the whole movie, kind of cucked
A little bit.
Yeah. By Newman, it's supposed to be kind of, you go in imagining it's going to be about the young gun like showing out and like beating the shit out of this old man, and there's an amount of that, but not really, not vibes wise.
There's a lot of movies that we covered that are just gonna fold into like the rewatch cycle. Movies I'd never seen before. I think Color Money is one of those.
Yeah.
It was
Whenever
the first
you do your
time watching it,
watch, just kind of like, oh, let's
and
throw that one on.
I feel like that's a really easy one to just throw on.
It is interesting. We went through all these performances. Neither of us named, or none of the three of us named the two Oscar-winning performances that were in this
Forrest Gump.
for Forrest Gump and Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean,
Philadelphia is in my top 10. I love that movie. Forrest Gump, not so much.
it's a good movie.
In your top 10 movies or top 10 performances?
Performances. Philadelphia is my number 8.
Okay. Interesting.
I think he does a great job with what he's given. I think that to me, that performance is defined by what they didn't let him do. And so that's why I'm frustrated whenever I think about Philadelphia, because I'm like, they wouldn't let him even be like a little gay. Like,
And I think that I feel that way
Antonio's
almost
in there.
more unfairly against Tom than I do for the movie. Because like looking at the list, I have Philadelphia higher when I'm talking about ranking the movies overall than I have the performance. It's a very showy performance, but maybe it's also knowing the highs of Demi that I'm like,
Can we
like so close.
Can we give an honorary wabammy to Antonio Banderas for being the gay boyfriend in both Philadelphia and Interview with the Vampire?
Wow.
He grabbed both of our Toms.
That's facts. And he's I don't want to spoil it, but he's the cucked hubby in Baby Girl.
Right. That's
Why-
gotta be something.
It's really interesting. I mean, he was coming from, this scene in
He
like,
was coming for sure.
he's coming
Her,
from
not so much.
from the scene in Spain, like in like the early 90s, and he was a huge deal over there. I think if he were coming around now when Hollywood is less bigoted and more willing to give serious roles to people with any accent of any type, I think he could have been like,
Well, he had to start playing Mexican guys in like Robert Rodriguez.
yeah, that's what I'm saying,
that's what
man.
happened.
Yeah, like he was limited by it when like he was like the hottest dude in the fucking world.
If only a little French guy, Jacques Audiard, would have been around.
Oh,
back
that
then.
could have been. He
could
could
have
have
given
made
an
such a
opportunity.
good Mexican in
Yeah.
a Jacques Audiard film.
So Forrest Gump is an interesting one.
That's like right in the middle. It's not bad. It's not great. It's just like the most middle movie.
The performance in particular is hard to grade because if anyone else was doing that voice in that role, the movie's awful.
It would be a choice. Yeah.
He didn't have to do that voice. So it's kind of like if I cut my arm off and then I was like still good at basketball and I'm like, pretty cool, huh? And you're like, yeah, but what if you had two?
Well, yeah, why did you do that though?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
I got him the Oscar.
It's really hard for the Forrest Gump thing of like separating the like, is it good from is it iconic? Because the answer to the latter is like unequivocally, yeah, of course. Like everybody knows all of the Forrest Gump isms. We said that we were going to do a live pod from Bubba Gump Shrimps, and there's still time for that. Maybe we will to have like the most overcooked shrimp that you've ever had in your entire life. But I don't know, man. It's just like Forrest Gump is fine. It's fun for what it is.
It's just a standard movie.
I think that in
It's
a way,
just like-
in a way, I feel like it's almost punished because it won Best Picture,
Right.
and that happens time to time. Where it's just like if this
And it
was
should be.
if this was just a movie where it just like came out, it was fun, it made a few $100 million, and then people kind of went on with their lives.
Now,
it would have not had the same level of like you just kind of like stick your nose up at it.
what if we did Forrest Gump, but the camera never moved?
Oh, so you're saying that instead of Forrest Gump going over there, he would just stay right here?
Right. Yeah. And like everything would happen.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't be looking in the direction of where everything happened because we wouldn't be there. We would be here.
So what you're saying is, but it's Forrest Gump still. So it's just like, there's just like a bench in a house and it's just like, oh, look, there's JFK getting assassinated.
Yeah, it's all coming to him.
It's just all like sitting at one spot in like Mobile, Alabama. where
Yeah,
just everything is happening.
He is. I mean, we're gonna have to do some real doctoring on like the whole running across America.
It's just him running back and forth, and people are like, I want to run in that guy's house too.
Yeah, they're like following him. I don't know. It's gonna take a lot of work.
Yeah. And then Benjamin Franklin's there for some reason.
Yeah, or we could just like not make a movie that takes place in one room. That sounds really stupid.
I don't know. Listen, it's starting. Here's already starting to get some
I'm only.
beloved, critically misunderstood.
Are you
Reclaim.
serious?
talk. Yeah.
I'm only watching that movie if it's made by like Richard Linklater or something. You know what I mean? Like someone who like has a knack for like dealing with like weird time dilation and like fucking with the formats.
I mean, but you gotta keep in mind, like Robert Zemeckis is like pretty much like has like a flawless record when it comes to experimenting with the format.
yeah. And when it comes to like being super old,
Right.
like, but still having it.
Yeah.
All right. Any other top 5 stuff to shout out before we jump to bottom 5? Did we do all of them?
Really enjoy Minority Report.
Yeah.
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 Banger.
I wouldn't. I mean, it's weird because I couldn't see anyone else doing that part, but it's also, I guess, just not hinging a ton on.
It's also just Tom like bringing it, man. You know, it's at a time when like he doesn't necessarily have to, but he's working with Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the big time. So he just really brings it in, and it's one of my favorite performances of the entire series.
Yeah.
He knocks it out of the
Great
park.
performance, incredible movie. It's the most sci-fi that he goes. Well, I guess no, Edge of Tomorrow I think is kind of right up in there.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
in the
over a decade
context of
later.
the series,
Right.
it definitely is. All right, so if we jump to bottom 5, this is when things start to get a little shaky. MI2, I think, is the worst movie we covered in the series.
So
Vanilla Sky second worst.
See, I have Vanilla Sky at the bottom.
Okay.
I think Vanilla Sky is not a good movie. Is kind of where I'm at. Just the more that I sit with it, it's like it's almost just a thing of it's like, how much can we really give credit for just having a lot of ideas if none of the ideas are well executed?
Yeah, you have to press on the blender. You can't just put it all in there. That movie is not synthesized at all. It is like 3 different movies just fucking jammed into the fucking blender. It doesn't work for me. I don't like the movie. Cruise, not the biggest problem. It's not a bad performance. I think a lot of the lines he has to say are just so fucking bad. And a lot of the time
He's doing whack.
and a lot of the
shit, too.
time he has a stupid fucking mask on
Yeah.
his face. They're
It's
doing
weird.
Cameron Crowe is trying to make our boy fail. He's trying to fuck him over. But then he gives him a fucked up face in return. And that's when our
It's
guy
cool.
Yeah. But
Bad
also,
movie.
Yeah. I mean, could anyone else wear that silly hat that way?
The bucket hat.
It's pretty good.
It's a good look. It's a good look. So, what is your worst performance?
Performance.
I already keyed off mine. My worst performance is Hanks in Catch Me If You Can. It's the accent, man. I'm sorry.
So that's in my bottom 5. I actually have that at 5. So I'm just gonna run up my bottom 5 performances. Catch Me If You Can, You've Got Mail, That Thing You Do,
Yep.
Joe versus the Volcano, and A League of Their Own. Oh my God, I just realized they're all Hanks. I don't have a Cruise in my bottom 5 performance. That's crazy. I just realized that. Because I actually have MI2 right outside that.
Well,
but for movies,
the-
it's MI2.
Yeah, the
it's
issue
Vanilla
is
Sky.
Cruise does more movies that don't hinge on him, as an actor delivering, and so like we can blame MI2 on everything else. I don't think he's doing a good job, but like, who could say any of that in a good way? It's so bad.
Yeah.
That movie sucks. It's so stupid.
A League of Their Own being my bottom performance is interesting because that's not a bad movie.
I don't think it's a bad performance.
I honestly like when you take a step back and look at this, like especially comparing it to Robin, we honestly didn't cover many real stinkers.
No, I don't think that there's any stink because I think even Vanilla Sky at least is something that it's swinging for the fences. It's trying to go for it. So there's something admirable in that, even if I don't think it's ultimately successful. I know MI2 is not a good movie. I'm not going to come out here and say that it's like this incredible misunderstood masterpiece or anything like that, but it's at least like deeply entertaining.
Yeah.
And there is like a lot to
There's
enjoy
some boring stuff,
within it. Yeah. It's not a great movie. It's in my bottom 5, but like, I don't think that is, I think that I have it actually at it's my second lowest.
I didn't give any movie on this series lower than 2.5 stars. I can't say the same for the Robin series.
Or the Cage.
Or the Cage. Right. Mission Impossible 2 got my only 2.5 stars. And then even like once you start going up, like I gave A League of Their Own 4 stars. I gave Joe versus the Volcano 4 stars. I even gave That Thing You Do and The Firm 4 stars. So that bottom area, like I still think these are great movies. The slice of stuff that really was shaky is a very thin slice.
Yeah, and we're talking about this particular series here, but both of these guys went on to make so many bad movies.
Right. Yeah, it's this slice, period right now. This slice of time.
I think in this time frame, I would assume that we skipped more Cruise movies than Hanks. Is that right?
Not really though. Like
No?
the one,
I
the
made
one
a
big one
skips
that we
list.
missed, or not like big one, I'm saying, but I did put Cocktail on my list. If we did Cocktail, that's right down there towards the bottom. Cocktail is a bad movie. Now it's a fun movie. But again, it's a very bad movie. It's another one that's like, it's not Cruise's fault. It's just a very poorly written and made film. But like, I think looking at my bottom, my worst performances, I have Catch Me If You Can, That Thing You Do, which that's
does
not entirely
write and
his
direct
fault. He
as
writes
well.
and directs it. So
I like his performance in it. I think that he didn't do himself any favors in the character that he wrote
Right.
for himself to play. He wrote himself to play a guy who's too
Very
ambiguous.
bland.
He's too ambiguous because he refused to be a bad guy.
yeah.
He also refused to be gay. Remember he dates that football player in the extended cut?
That is a thing that happens. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that guy?
He just didn't want to make a statement. Number 3, I have Vanilla Sky. Number 4, I have Joe versus the Volcano. I don't know, man. Joe versus the Volcano, I thought
Weird
was like
movie.
fine. Is kind of where I'm at with it. I know that we did. Was it Sean who was on that episode?
Yeah.
So like, I liked it more. I liked talking about that movie than I think I did while watching it. I think while watching it, I was like, I don't think this movie is very fun. There's very fun aspects of it. Like when they go to that store where they get like the suits and
Meg
the suitcase
Ryan
and everything.
plays like 3 characters and they're all great.
Yeah, Meg Ryan's
Meg
phenomenal
Ryan,
in it.
Meg Ryan is a special actress.
Yeah. Meg Ryan, this was like a shadow miniseries for Meg Ryan as well. And thank
Yeah,
you, Meg
you've
Ryan.
got Mail,
Appreciate-
Sleepless.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Joe.
Genuinely one of the greats. I've been, I've spoken so many praises for her. I think a lot of the reason that Hanks is going to be on the bottom for some of these is because he's a lot more willing to be not the main character in his movies. And you know, the less screen time you have, the less time you have to sink into a role and sort of, you know, like the less time you give us to get to know you and like you. So in something like A League of Their Own, like I don't know, it's tough because he was
Where are you guys at on League of Your Own?
well, it's
I
just,
wasn't here on that episode.
it's really weird because he's like intentionally going against type, but it's like before he even had his type locked
Right.
down. So
well,
it's like,
he had Big. you
Yeah.
know, so there was, this was the follow up with Penny Marshall. I think A League of Their Own is a good movie, but I don't think Hanks is good in it. At least my memory of it. It just, that feels like a movie about the girls. Like it's about
No, you're right.
Gina. It's about Madonna. It's about Rosie. Like Hanks is there, but I don't think he was really like bringing much.
I mean, he's making different choices. Like as an actor selecting roles at that point, and also in that movie, Cruise is just he's not gonna play that type of role most of the time. Like when he does, like when we start seeing him in like Magnolia or in like Tropic Thunder as like a side character, it's awesome. But most of the time, like he's the guy on the poster.
Right. Hanks, whenever he's a side guy, it's like it can go way wrong.
Yeah.
It can be like fucking
Now,
Elvis.
I want to give a really, really special shout out to Ron Howard for doing exactly what you always do and not getting mentioned once so far.
Yeah, no,
in this whole conversation.
You just want him to
You're
just be the most middling director
Hey, man,
possible.
so dead in the fucking middle with Apollo 13.
No, that's a solid little movie.
solid little movie. That's where you want to put it.
Space is cool. We should explore the stars.
This is the highlight of his entire career, and it's gonna get not so much as a shout out.
Should we do a Glenn Close series and cover Bill
Hillbilly Elegy.
Amy Adams.
What
series?
might be the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, you're about to have.
Well,
to
when
watch
Amy
it every
Adams
day.
is, who knows?
Trump's going to die someday. He's going to.
And then JD Vance is going to make
Yeah.
that like required viewing.
he's gonna be
once
president.
once a day.
Yeah. Did you see someone like tweeted or blue skied or something that Glenn Close and Amy Adams should be making like TikToks in character to like troll JD as like his family?
You know what? They probably shouldn't, because neither of them want to remind anybody that they participated.
Wouldn't that
in
be
project.
funny though?
Ron Howard should be doing Arrested Development style narration over JD
Vance, just like him,
Right.
just walking, lumbering around.
Once again,
This
JD
is JD Vance. He's gay.
he was not invited to the Oval Office again, but Elon was.
Yeah. Another movie we haven't mentioned yet. I think it's closer to the bottom than it is to the top. But I did want to at least mention The Firm. Sidney Pollack.
The Firm is good.
It's a good
Great,
movie.
great Tom running.
I
If
think-
we're ranking, should we do another list? Where
Yeah,
we
let me make
rank the
another ranking on running.
Is this
The Firm is up.
MI2 number one. It's the only time it'll be number one.
on the poster? He's running in his own face.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's
That's all you need to know.
I haven't seen it, but I
think
feel like I've seen it.
The Firm, it's kind of a dumb movie in a way. Like, it kind of loses itself a little bit, but I think it's very
just peak
deeply
90s
fun.
shit.
It is so, yeah, it's 90s legal thriller shit that like can't get made anymore by Sidney Pollack, and he's just made 100 of these movies.
We are going to Tennessee soon. Should we
Listen.
try to go to The Firm?
Oh my
The
God,
Firm?
we could go to The
It's
Firm.
Memphis. It's a little far from where we're going, but it might be worth the trek.
Stop in
over.
West Virginia for Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh my God, we should do a tour.
Oh my God.
Have all of our wives and girlfriends leave us.
So here's, I think, the other theory as to why when Hanks is bad, it's bad. Because we're talking about two actors here who have very specific fatal flaws. Cruise's is that he doesn't have chemistry with women. And so to combat that, what he does is he doesn't do movies that hinge around that. He's not doing, at least in our coverage, a rom-com that like, where like the entire thesis has to be he vibes with a chick. It'll be present in a lot of these movies, but you'll be like, oh yeah, that, the 15 minutes that focus on that romance don't work. But he's really great in the rest of it. Hanks's fatal flaw is that he can't do voices. And he decides to do a voice lot of the time.
Except for when he's a little animated doll.
Great at that.
Which is kind of incredible. I mean, that is a underrated. Don't really know where to put that whenever we're talking about best performances, but whenever you're talking about like the iconic of that role, what he is doing.
I would have,
Woody.
I would have supported it if you guys had that in your top 5 because it's
It's in my top 10 because I do think that it is so synonymous with a character that it's hard to separate. But to your wider point, when he's trying to play humans and do a voice, not so successful.
Yeah, and instead of it being like, oh, that little part of the movie doesn't work, it's like, yeah, no, all of Forrest Gump, every line, every line of the movie doesn't work as well as it should. Every line of his role in Catch Me If You Can doesn't work quite the way it should. We didn't get to Cloud Atlas, but
The true.
I mean, I guess he had to do voices in that fucking movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say which one of his voices. He does several.
Yeah, like 6 different people.
So I think it's just a matter of Cruise's, at his peak especially, he knew what he was good at. He was aware of how he was perceived and he leaned into it.
Well, here's the question though. I think we're at that point. This was Tom v. Tom. Who won the series? Do we feel like we can make a verdict?
It's different on what you're looking for, but I do think whenever I look at my top 5, just movies, 4 of my 5 are Cruise movies. And the only Hanks movie that I have in my top 5 is Toy Story, which is, I mean, it's incredible. It's my number 1 movie, but it's not Hanks in it. Mm-hmm. So I don't really know. But also, as we said before, there's some stinker Tom. Tom is also in some stinker movies in here too. So he's got like the wide range of the high highs and the low lows.
I think Cruise does have the better movies, but I don't think that means you win the series.
No, I don't think so either. I'm just talking about just all the things to take into account.
I mean, if we did an amalgam though, and if we scored out and did like a mean or something, I think Cruise would win. And you know, I don't want to say that, but it's hard to argue with the list. Like he knocked off a ton of bangers, and he was central to all of them in a way that Hanks wasn't necessarily. Now, Hanks will forever be able to go down as having a run with 0 like flops,
Right.
Which,
Yeah.
again, I mean, it's a lot like getting to the Super Bowl or something. Like, it's really hard every single time, and so to do it like 10 times in a row or 12 times in a row or whatever it was he did, it's nearly impossible. Like another actor we might end up covering, Denzel, had a very similar 90s, but even just having 1 or 2 iffy ones in there, you know, that's what separates it. So shout out to him for that. But like, also, I think some of them haven't aged quite as well. I think there's a little bit less of an edge to your Hanks movie than there is to some of your Cruise movies. So I don't want to do it, but I think Cruise did win the series.
I think Cruise wins the series just because in a vacuum, the experience of watching these movies, you kind of just have to block out the world a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is Hanks,
but if you take
cool.
if you take in everything around the movies, you give it to Hanks because he's just a more lovable guy.
Yeah.
He's a more warming presence. He did something during this time that nobody will ever be able to do again.
I also think at his peak and at his best in a lot of these movies, he's more irreplaceable than Cruise was. Cruise has, more than anything, he has the intensity factor. And there are other actors who have that.
I think that you're right. I think that whenever people are talking about like the best movie stars ever and kind of talking about Cruise in that rank, it's not that he is the only movie star ever, because you are right. There are other people who can channel, even like an Ethan Hunt, which has become synonymous with Cruise. You could get a B+, an A- in that role. I think that what separates Cruise from his Pete Maverick Mitchells, his Ethan Hunts, even something like his Chaffies, like his like Jerry Maguire's, those iconic roles, is that he elevates them. He is he's not a floor setter in the same way. I think Hanks is a floor setter and Cruise is a ceiling raiser.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think when you look at something like Castaway, you know, that's something that not only could Cruise never do, but nobody could do.
Exactly.
Is there a Cruise movie or a Cruise performance that you could say the same thing about?
That no one could do? I think for me, I mean, the closest that I get is Jerry Maguire, because that movie almost is a meta text about him. It's about a guy who up to the point that the movie started, his whole life has been 100% intensity, and now he's starting to show cracks and feel emotions, and he
build back.
And so it's a movie about a Cruise type who can't figure out how to be a human.
Yeah.
And that's why it's one of my favorite movies ever. It's so incredible.
I do think though that, like, I don't know, if it's 2013, could Leo have been Jerry Maguire?
Yeah, but it wouldn't be the same.
Exactly.
It'd be different.
That's what I'm saying, is that you could replace
You can make
him,
that movie with the same plot.
but again, it's an A-, it's not an A++.
Yeah. I don't think anyone could be well, I was about to say the Vampire Lestat, but then I remember they just made a TV show.
Oh, actually, there was a different
about it,
Vampire
and there
Lestat.
is a new Vampire Lestat. It's actually pretty good. He does a great job. He's not Tom Cruise, but he kills it. So
are we Cruise?
We're crowning our boy.
Flawless victory, Cruise over here. Man, I am a pig in shit right now. Look at this.
Congratulations.
Wow, good job, Tom.
Cruise. Oh, sorry.
No,
Jesus
that's
Christ.
keep that.
Okay,
Keep that around.
We got there eventually. No, it's not. I mean, it's very close. I think that it is depending on what you want. And it's funny, every time that we did could the other Tom do this role, pretty much for either of them, the answer was always no.
No,
Like,
there's barely any overlap.
There was very, very
Wait,
rarely
no,
overlap.
I eyes wide shut. I think I would like to see Hanks in there. That might be the one.
It's just one of those things where both of them are giving you two different sides of the coin of Hollywood in the 90s.
And that was the
incredible.
beauty of this series, is that as we jumped around, every time we switched from one Tom to the other, it was like almost like a full 180. Like you were turning the Hollywood at that time like fully around and looking at it from another
It's funny
side.
because then we look at like the top 5 movies of the year. And it's like, oh, there's one Tom and there's the other Tom,
Yeah.
like whatever the year.
People
is.
were showing up.
Ultimately, I still, even though like just in terms of quality, I do think Cruise wins the series. I think Hanks's movies and like what he brought as a movie star were more important for like changing the film industry because sort of a much more vulnerable, like soft masculinity. We're coming out of the 80s. We're coming out of Schwarzenegger.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're coming out of like hard, stupid action. And you know, Cruise isn't exactly that, but he is a flavor of that sometimes.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Cruise is a flavor of that, and Cruise is kind of the last version of that in some ways. Like, I guess you could point to like Russell Crowe in the early 2000s, but that's kind of like
That's
talking
such
about
a-
such a small window.
Yeah,
there.
it's a bright spark that burns out.
It's something that is just like, this is the last thing that we're seeing here. And now if you're a movie star, it's because you're fucking Captain America or something. Like that is when we're talking about action movie stars or
branded
look, it's fucking
content.
Liam Neeson again. You're getting the Expendables. You're getting old people in there because we can't make new action stars.
So Cruise wins the series, the 26 movies that we covered, but I think Hanks wins after the series.
And he also like wins like real life.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, because he gave birth to a beautiful boy, beautiful Chet.
so
If you gave me $1 million and you said which one gave birth to that kid, I would 100% say Cruise. Cruise gave birth to Chet and then abandoned him immediately. And that's what happened.
to this day, 2025, both of our guys are still working. Both of our guys are still out there, but only one of them has had to rise from the ashes and like completely rehabilitate his image.
So I do want to talk about that a little bit because now we're getting into the post movie times. I want to ask you guys, do you think that the whole narrative of Tom Cruise being blacklisted and him just being like outcast from Hollywood and forgotten is a little bit overblown as we just look at the numbers?
Absolutely not. No. We watched the Oprah couch jump in preparation for this episode.
No, we all did. I watched it multiple times and took detailed notes of each of them.
Let's do it.
I have brought this up on the pod before. You might think you remember how crazy this moment was in pop culture. The whole video it's the most upset you'll ever be in your life.
It's hard to find one that's like just the raw footage.
It's
a lot of them are kind of trimmed up, and I'm wondering like what they cut out. It's probably just the audience cheering.
It's so upsetting. It has the vibe of like Requiem for a Dream. Like the TV show in Requiem where it's just people cheering. It feels a lot like that.
It's because everybody just points to like just the couch jump or even the like getting on the ground like yes. But like one of the most uncomfortable things is just his laugh and then him just grabbing Oprah's hands and shaking her
and then like forcing his wife to come out
with her arms.
She does not want to come out.
He's like leading her like a dog.
So just to back up a second. So we capped this series off with Minority Report. That movie came out in 2002. He goes on to work with Steven Spielberg one more time for a movie called War of the Worlds, which maybe one day we'll do like a bonus episode on that movie. But in promotion for that movie, in doing the promo rounds, he goes on Oprah Winfrey's show to promote the movie. And they don't talk about the movie because very quickly Tom is unwell.
Well, backing up a step, because this is at the very beginning of the War of the Worlds press tour, which has now become like a pretty iconic press tour. This Oprah performance was over a month before the movie came out. At this time, though, in 2005, this is peak paparazzi time. This is peak TMZ. So it wasn't just
internet was starting up in a big way.
It's been well known that he's been a Scientologist for years now.
Yeah.
Like that, that's baked in. People are like learning what Scientology is. They know he's like odd. They know about the Nicole Kidman situation. He's now with Katie Holmes.
Right.
He is with Katie Holmes, and they have been like photographed together. And at this point in time, like even through, if you go back and look at like the Kidman Cruise relationship,
That was a paparazzi thing.
they
in
were
and of itself.
constantly harassed by paparazzi, and then their whole divorce was like deeply chronicled by the paparazzi. So they
Tied
have been
to the film.
they have
The
been
Eyes Wide
obsessed
Shut.
with Cruise like around or before this press tour in particular was always very avoidant with questions about the paparazzi, about the Church of Scientology, about his own personal life, was like very much just like always trying to skirt the question, whatever. Then he starts this little relationship with Katie Holmes, and he just can't freaking help himself.
He's in
Our
love.
boy, I'm in love.
The boy is gone.
Let me tell you, if I ever did this around you guys, if like I just ever came to a podcast and just like jump up on there like yes.
Hunter, I don't want you doing any of that. The way that your body is like falling apart.
I know.
Stop.
I actually just shattered 3 vertebrae doing that.
It's true though. And this video is a good illustration of why Oprah is the greatest to ever do it. By the way,
Composure.
well, low key, like an insanely problematic show. You know what I mean? Like she was always trying to gotcha people. She was really like blunt,
Yeah.
way more blunt than she
The
gets
whole
remembered
Nathan
for.
Lane thing. With
There are
Robin,
a
that was
lot
the
of things.
whole
Like,
thing.
I mean, before her show got big, she was basically a Jerry Springer type of show.
Yeah.
Like it was like a trashy show.
Yeah.
She just lets him be crazy. She knows what it looks like. You know what I mean?
She sees money. She's like, this is going to pop off.
Her crowd is feral.
Yeah. Screaming.
Yeah, every time that he freaks out, they freak out. And so they're egging him on. They take none of the blame here.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's feeding off of this crowd who's like super into his energy. And so it becomes this feedback loop where like he just keeps on going and you think he's done. And then he goes back and he's like, yeah, yeah. And it's so upsetting to watch. The timing of it all doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel human. It feels like one of those like Vic Berger YouTube videos, you know, where he edits it so the timing is bad and says it to like fucked up music.
Yeah.
It's so scary.
I would have loved to have watched this live. This would have been just like, what a mind fuck.
I mean, it was the biggest like story that whole year.
Yeah.
It got more coverage than like the Iraq War that year. It genuinely was the biggest thing that happened, and it wasn't the current media cycle. You know, this is 20 years ago.
yeah.
So
It just kept going.
yeah, things go away within like 2 days now, no matter what.
Right.
It was the whole year. It was
Right.
months.
And then
months
there was
and
the
months.
Matt Lauer interview, which we can talk about too.
And I think that is kind of one of the things where if it was just the couch jumping, and then because War of the Worlds came out, and this was a successful movie, like at least financially, it was a hit. It was a Spielberg.
It's a good
whatever.
movie. I like it.
It's pretty good. I have not seen it in very many years. But the Matt Lauer, that interview, I think, is kind of what changed Tom's relationship to media moving forward. Because this is the one time that we have seen Tom up to this point talk at least a little bit more freely about Scientology and about his beliefs. And it is the ramblings of a madman. Like it is somebody who is, and it's something where it's like, you know, he like gets so close to having like a good idea in there. Like about this idea of like, we're sticking kids on Ritalin and Adderall instead of actually like treating them. We're always masking symptoms instead of treating the cause. But all of that is under the like the guise of a whole situation they had with Brooke Shields for taking antidepressants while she had postpartum depression.
Right. And he's telling Matt Lauer, like, no, you're wrong.
Yeah. Maybe
How
you should
dare
do your
you?
own research before you ever ask a question, Matt. Like Matthew.
Yeah.
Unwell. A very unwell man.
I mean, it really just proves how well disciplined he was for so many years to
Right.
like be that.
Just cranking out.
And and I'm sure that he wasn't like that insane in like the 80s, but like he was that intense. And he
he joined Scientology in like 86 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and it's also, like you said, like paparazzi culture was like peaking in like mid 2000s. It wasn't like that in the 80s. It reminds me a lot of Michael Jordan. He had the best PR in the world. No one knew he was a piece of shit until the 2000s.
Like a gambling addict.
The whole time he was a piece of shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like, yeah, he lets us under the hood, and
People were very weirded out.
well, especially because even though like now it's seen as like a joke, and like even back then he was giving a lot of women the ick, like he was still like a big part of his like fan base, and his, you know, his gravity was like his celebrity and his sex appeal.
Right.
Again, I can't understand that for the life of me.
I think that's just the idea of the sex
it's
appeal
just-
of Tom
well,
Cruise more than it is like
no,
his
exactly.
actual
It's
just
Hollywood
the
having
on-screen-
sex with
Yeah,
him.
it's Hollywood
the
saying like
on-screen
this is
version.
like the hot movie
Yeah.
star.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You see a guy who just tells you like, "Hey, you're depressed. Maybe you should take some vitamins and exercise." You cow.
He
Then-
would do crazy fucking numbers on Andrew Tate's show
Oh,
God.
yeah,
with that shit.
Yeah.
But then Andrew Tate would find out about his mask rant, and he'd be like, "Oh, never mind."
Yeah.
I mean, the gap here in between like the on-screen persona and the real guy is massive. And that's not the case with Hanks necessarily. Hanks has very successfully like closed that gap as much as you possibly can. And we can talk a little bit about what his 2000s looked like. He had some stumbles too, you know, the Lady Killers, the Terminal, Polar Express, like
I am the airport man.
Krakow. I gotta get home. Oh no, I don't have a country.
Very nice.
So he has a crash, but he doesn't have to like do the work that Cruise does to lift himself up out of that.
Hanks has much more of just a natural decline, a natural shift in your career that actors have, where it's just like
A lull.
oh. Well, it's not even a lull. It's just like this guy just isn't the most famous person in the world anymore. And that's fine. That just usually happens with most actors, and they just kind of go away quietly on their own. They don't have one moment to point to.
Hollywood turned on Cruise in a big way.
So they did, but I did want I wanted to go through like kind of the films themselves, because I think that this got shot out a bunch right around the time of Maverick, of like Tom Cruise is back. He is back. He has been out of our life for so long, and he is back. First of all, right before this, the two movies that we don't talk about that happen in between Minority Report and then the jumping is Last Samurai, which is a problematic movie, but was a huge financial success. Collateral, which is a banger, absolute stone cold banger.
Didn't leave a mark at the time though.
But it was still financially successful. It made back double what its budget was.
Yeah.
Like, it was something.
Yeah, but
it wasn't.
it wasn't
a top 5 movie of the year.
Exactly.
Like what Cruise had been known for.
Yeah.
After the couch jump, he has Mission Impossible 3, which is IP. That's a massive hit. Whatever. And then, you know, he does have a couple of stinkers in there. Not stinkers, but just not successful movies.
Night
taking
and
taking out Tropic Thunder, where the Les Grossman, which was like a Cruise is back and we like him again. That was 3 years later in 2008. He has Lions for Lambs, the Robert Redford directed movie.
What is that movie about?
It's like an Oscar bait movie.
I know you
Redford.
could
It's
like looking at the poster.
Doesn't exist.
You could tell me literally anything, and I believe it.
zero discourse for the movie.
Lawyers.
Valkyrie,
I don't know.
which again, you know, it's something. It's an idea.
Eye patch.
Not successful. That's a miss. Night and Day. That's a miss. We think it goes.
Hold on, Ernest. Do you want us to carve out a couple minutes for you to talk about Night and Day?
Where's the Night and Day poster?
The poster is right there.
Okay, it's on your ceiling, so the audience can't see that you do have a Night and Day poster. Can we talk about it?
That was in your room when I met you in 2010.
In 2010,
that's not a joke.
This was one of the most important movies in your life, Ernest. So do you want to speak on Night and Day?
A James Mangold film.
Yeah.
You know, from the mind of a complete unknown comes Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz reuniting from Vanilla Sky.
You said we would make fun of you, and you were like, you might have not liked that, but your kids will love it.
I don't know what this movie's about. I just know that they ride a motorcycle at some point.
They ride it backwards.
Yeah, I don't know. It was fun.
Did he have to walk on like stilts to be next to fucking Cameron Diaz?
Probably.
That's crazy. Or did she do like the little kid trick and like have shoes on her knees?
Look,
and like
maybe.
shuffle around them.
I will rewatch it and I'll let you know.
Okay.
I think that almost there's just as big of a lull though in between those movies. We're talking about really, because Mission Impossible 3 is still pretty big success, both domestically and internationally. The 07 to 2010 lull is just as big of a lull as whenever we get to 2016 to 2017. Like that whole, we get Jack Reacher, Never Let Go. What? The Mummy and American Made coming out the same year.
This is around the time when he's really like, I need to lock into action mode.
Well, he's like, I need to find IP to attach myself to. Yeah. And Spielberg has turned his back on me. Can't figure out why. So I got to find new guys. So he just like, he finds Brad Bird, which then becomes McQuarrie, and he finds this little guy named Joseph Kosinski with a little movie called Oblivion.
Do you think that if you're an actor and you like have kids and you get a divorce, Spielberg will never talk to you again? He's just
probably
he's done.
Yeah.
Done.
He's like, you have done. That's worse than murder.
Yeah. That's so,
he sees himself.
So really,
shooting.
so you're right that there's plenty of success in here and plenty of financial success. I think what's missing is impact.
Right.
There's not cultural impact in any of this.
and still Maverick.
None of this matters. Even Mission Impossible got better before people caught on. You know what I mean? Like
Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, Ghost Protocol is good. No one's talking about
It was big financially.
Exactly.
But you're right that he's not the biggest movie star in the world. But then again, at this point, he's in his 40s. Like, I don't know what more we're expecting for him to be. And I think that is...
He's like approaching his 50s.
He's approaching
by
his
the time
50s.
we get to Fallout, yeah.
Well, no, but that's what I'm talking about for this era of like the 2000s going into 2010s. And I think that like I wanted to bring up his age because I think that is kind of the crux of the couch jumping and of the Matt Lauer thing. It is him for the first time in his life grappling with like, you are not the young gun anymore. And that is why he had this complete breakdown, is because he didn't know how to pivot. Hanks came into this, got into stardom. We've talked about it plenty.
Older.
When he was in his like 30s.
Yeah.
Like he came into the game, he was older. So it's much more of a natural transition.
And he also, before it was like a demand of the culture, he already was letting people in. If you go back to press he did in the 90s, like that's why he did well in these rom-coms, because he could go on talk shows and be a human, and everyone was shocked. They were like, oh my God, that wasn't normal back then.
Yeah.
Like, your average leading man could go on those shows and like have like jokes and stories lined up. The anecdote, Nathan, for you. But yeah, he was way ahead of his time in that regard. And so he was like tailor-made for the landscape that would emerge. Cruise is the exact opposite. Like when the demand of the people was like, hey, we want to find out about you, like, he was like, oh no, you don't want to. Like the second we found out anything, the second we found out the one thing about him,
repulsive,
everyone was out.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other thing I was going to say, going to the Hanks piece of things is everybody points to just Cruise having to like latch on and hold on tight to the IP of it. Well, and just all of his future roles just have to be like IP driven in some kind of way. Our boy Hanks isn't he doesn't get off scot-free with this. He does find like the Da Vinci Code movies and he's like, these are my thing. And then he's like, oh God, I'm having a bunch of misses in here. Well, I guess it's time to make Toy Story 3. Let's go in here and then let's do some other things, and they don't really work. Larry Crown, 2011, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close.
He starts taking a lot of paychecks, I think.
Yeah. And then Cloud Atlas. There are some great movies in there. There is like your Captain Phillips, or if not like great movies, then movies that did make a cultural impact.
It's also painted by how they're choosing to show themselves. Like I said, Tom Hanks wasn't trying to not age, and Tom Cruise was desperately trying to not age.
He's trying to be...
Yeah, and so like when you see Cruise clearly trying with all his might, to do a movie star thing, and then it going like okay, you're like, wow, what a fucking loser. Watching Hanks like being clearly an older man and being a movie that kind of flops, it's like, yeah, but I still like that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
it's fair. It's 100%.
Cruise tried so hard to win an Oscar too, and he didn't get there. Like
Lions for Lambs is like it's like a 30 Rock Oscar movie. That poster is so funny.
It's Lions for
that's so late.
Valkyrie.
That's so late in the game, though. I'm talking more so about like,
oh yeah, when he's young,
the Magnolia, Eyes Wide Shut, like double whammy. Even like Jerry not getting it for Jerry.
I was gonna say
It's
going
like,
back. I mean, fucking Born on the 4th of July. Like,
Right.
He always wanted it.
Right.
Yeah.
He should have gotten it at some point.
So by the time you get to post Nicole Kidman with the couch jump and Katie Holmes, like there's a lot of buildup there of like his place in Hollywood and how he's currently being received as time goes on. And I think that there's a lot of like pressure points coming in on that breakdown. That's not just like, I'm an older, weird Scientology guy. It's also just like, the pressure of being the guy. You're the guy, and now it's like you don't feel like you're being recognized 100%.
Yeah,
even though you're the guy.
And also Hanks, especially as time has gone on, is like known as like an elder statesman of Hollywood, almost like a spokesman of Hollywood.
Yeah.
He's like
mayor,
he's an authoritative figure about movies. Period.
Yeah, and dad, he's America's
Cruise.
dad.
Wants to
he's
be
Chet's dad.
Cruise wants to be that with all his heart, and that's why Maverick was such a big deal, because like that was a moment when everyone in Hollywood recognized that he did something really important for Hollywood. Because it's one of those things of I would say Cruise probably doesn't have friends so much as he has coworkers in Hollywood. You know what I mean? So like if you're a collaborator with him, you recognize him, you acknowledge him for how important he is. But do you want to like go to like a rich people dinner and like have drinks with him? Probably not.
Right.
Hanks, you want to fucking vibe with him.
Right. Yeah. You just want to hang out with him.
Yeah. And that's how you gain clout in any industry.
So to that point, a little bit, I meant to mention it earlier, but it's very funny to me that Cruise and Spielberg meet up at the time that they do, because I talked about this a little bit whenever I was talking about I think it was on the Catch Me If You Can pod, where Spielberg post Saving Private Ryan Oscar is like, I don't really know what to do now. I've kind of done everything that there is to do with movies. I've like won Oscars on both extremes. Like, what do I do at this point? So you see him like, maybe I'll put on the Cooper Cat with making an AI. Maybe I'll try and make a Ridley Scott movie with Minority Report. Like he's kind of floating around, and it kind of feels like Cruise is in a little bit the same way himself. Like post Magnolia, he's like, what kind of actor am I? Like, where is this next stage of my career? So it almost kind of feels like they're like like two people coming off of like toxic breakups with each other, and like they were never gonna last. They just had to have like this fiery explosion together a couple of times, and then like they can't look at each other and just like, we should probably just like not do this again though, right? Like we should stop.
Wish we could complete the trilogy.
Who knows? Maybe it's not too late. Yeah. What's a untitled UFO movie? Has that been completely?
Bring him in.
Has that been cast?
He's not doing Quentin's new.
So
he is doing an Inarritu movie. Yeah.
So Cruise, he's moved into an interesting phase where he is recognized for how remarkable it is that he's able to continue keep all this up. And
he saved cinema.
He saved cinema, universally beloved movie. Mission Impossible is now getting flowers that it has deserved for probably a decade, but wasn't getting. And yet, if you bring up his name to your average like casual movie watcher, they're like, I just don't like that guy.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be that way, because guess what?
Right.
Why would you like that guy?
Well, I know it's a thing too, where I was trying to think of like, do either of these people have anything to prove left at this point? Like, I think the answer is probably no. But like, you would say for Hanks, unabashedly no. Like Hanks doesn't, whatever Hanks does for the rest of his career is just gravy at this point.
He's probably going to be at SNL 50 this weekend.
It does feel like there's just something else for Cruise. Like there's some last chapter that is yet to be written that we're still waiting for. And I hope that it does get written. I hope that we do get something from it, but
I do think with Hanks, it is interesting to see this like 2010s, now 2020s layer, because obviously like I don't think he needs a third Oscar, but you
would have given it to Elvis though, right?
His only nomination the past 20 years was for A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. A solid movie. I enjoyed that movie. But I did watch, just kind of looking at like the stuff that I haven't seen from his for the first time today, I watched Captain Phillips right before we recorded this episode. And the fact that he wasn't nominated for that performance is crazy.
So I've heard
he
that.
Is so incredible in that movie. And yeah, maybe he doesn't have something to prove, but maybe he has another gear left in him in terms of like delivering a incredibly like resonant and heavy hitting emotional turn that maybe people thought that he couldn't or wouldn't or didn't want to or whatever label you want to put on it. Because when was the last time he did that? Like his last nomination before that was Castaway, obviously. Like we talked about how that was one of the best, but now as an old man, like I don't want him to be remembered for fucking Elvis and Pinocchio.
No, I think he's able to pull it back every couple years. And I think that it's almost different thinking of Hanks and Cruise too, because Cruise is only in like one movie every 3 years, where Hanks is
he cranks him out.
You know, he cranks him out a little bit.
Yeah.
He is a working man in Hollywood. He is closer
Finch.
to the norm.
Yeah, he is Finch.
He's a man called Otto.
He's just
Dead ass.
I mean, that is him trying to be. A Man Called Otto is like a lot of people love that movie, and there was some people around at the time. Well, I remember around 2022, there was like something of like, is Cruise too late? Could he like bust his way into the best actor game? Because that was a weaker year. But you know, there is like something to be said for that, for News of the World, Greyhound,
Bridge of
like,
Spies is awesome.
The Post is something that should have been like a traditional Oscar Beatty type of role. Now, I think, speaking of terrible accents, The Post is right up there with the best of them.
Do you guys think that he thought that here would get it himself?
I think so. I mean,
yeah, maybe.
Maybe it's not why he did it, but
It's Zemeckis, so yeah, sure.
I don't see why not.
He said, look, I did fucking Pinocchio for you. You better try to give me something.
I mean, generally he's always clearly like been mentally healthier than Cruise. The thing with Cruise is that he's always had the freakish motivation for greatness. And that, I think even if he had achieved more, I don't think that goes away. That level of intensity truly only comes from people who like have parents who don't love them.
Right.
I'm not even joking. Like deep, on like a deep psychological level, he's seeking approval from fucking someone, and he's never gonna get it. So I don't think that I think even if he had a best actor or two, I don't know if he'd be on a different path.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
I think he might just be a fucking psycho.
So what's next? I mean, The Final Reckoning is coming.
We got that. What Hanks projects are on the horizon?
Finch 2.
Finch.
Here 2.
The Phoenician
Bear.
Scheme. You know, he's one of
Wes
like
Anderson.
27 people in the new Wes Anderson movie.
Okay.
Which
he was great in Asteroid City. I really liked him.
Oh no, he's awesome. I mean, I love him joining like the Wes
troupe.
Anderson troupe. Yeah.
No, that's great.
If we did not
That's
mention
the shit that
the
Cruise will
Phoenician
just
Scheme,
never ever
No.
Cruise and Wes Anderson.
honestly,
hate
that
that.
would rock. I'd be here for it because it
Please,
would.
no.
I mean,
He's so off
this
kilter.
whole conversation goes back to something I brought this up like months ago on this, talking about Tom. Cruise never on SNL.
Yep.
Hanks always on SNL.
Right.
It's-
That is, I think, one of the defining aspects of this like 21st century period is that
Who do you like?
who do you want to hang out with? Who do you want to see on your screen as just a guy?
Well, and it speaks to
Not a star.
It speaks toward being less choosy because I maintain that I think he never did it because he's too perfectionist and that's not enough
Yes.
time to get something perfect. It's sort of the same way they're doing their roles nowadays. Like Hanks is like just tossing off, A Man Called Otto here. I don't think he thinks that's perfect. You know what I mean?
Well, you got to work. Actors just got to work at a certain point.
Every time Cruise is doing something, I think that he wants it to be perfection.
I don't know. It's really expensive to like ignore one of your children. So the Cruise relationship with his kids is it's sad. It's weird because apparently he has like a pretty good relationship now, reportedly, with the 2 adopted kids from Kidman, but it's just with Suri, his
Tough.
child with
what you want.
Katie Holmes is really bad.
I mean, and
It's really tough.
I don't know. I feel like it's fucked up to say, but if you're at that level of successful and like career oriented, you should just kind of not have kids. Like even Hanks,
It's kind of selfish.
like if you have a problem child, which is what Chet was, you're not equipped to deal with that. And so you send him off to like military school.
And if
People
you do
can
have a normal
change.
child, you have to like force your son Colin into every project that you do, and you'd be like, "Can my son? Can Colin have something to do?" And if you have a
No
brother,
lines, though.
if you have a brother, you should make him do all of your voice casting for Woody for any like video game property.
Oh,
or,
is that
like-
what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he going to do Toy Story 5? He's just going to slot in the brother.
Yeah, probably.
Do you guys think that
People
Rita
always won't
Wilson
notice.
just cheated on Tom Hanks and had Chet, and it's as simple as that. Because I'm not seeing any DNA there, and
I
it's
like
so
this.
strong with Colin.
Can we
He
have-
looks just like him.
Can we have
okay.
an investigative report arm of We Bought Him?
Yeah.
Go into this. Like, who's Chet's real father?
He doesn't look like him. He doesn't act like him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
No, I like this.
maybe it's he has Jamaican blood, and it was actually not problematic this whole time.
God, what a twist that would be.
I mean, it's in the cards.
He looks like a Family Guy character.
It's in the cards.
He acts like a Family Guy character.
Jesus.
All right.
Rita Wilson fucked Peter Griffin.
Ada. Any final thoughts on our Toms? Are we ready to close the book? Move forward. Put this
Sad.
behind us.
Yeah, I think said all that can be
We
said
did it.
about our Toms.
We did it.
We're still holding the door open if our two Toms ever want to be in a movie together.
I think that's the move. That's the
What-
Spielberg movie after the UFO movie.
So what movie can you even imagine the two of them having a
We've
role
pitched this on the pod before. I remember saying something that they're like lovers in some way. They're like old men who like have been rivals, and they discover that they've loved each other their whole lives.
They're too close in age to each other because we talk like, we said in the Catch Me If You Can pod, but like young Cruise in the Leo role, there you go. Like that would have been the spot to have them together. But it's weird having two different old guys, but
Yeah.
completely different shades of old guy.
I want like a Slow Horses type story.
Okay.
Where like Tom Hanks is like the stinky Gary Oldman type, and Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise.
I want a Ripley type thing.
Oh.
Where Cruise is Ripley.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah,
And he kills
I've
Tom
been-
Hanks.
he
Listen,
has such disdain,
impersonate him.
disgust for Hanks.
I'm still so sad that we did not do Collateral for this podcast. Who knows? We might just have to cover
Yeah.
Collateral in a future episode of this podcast because
Collateral
God,
fucking rocks.
Tom Cruise Breaking Bad, please give that to me again. It is just the best. He is so fucking gifted
Vincent
at that.
Collateral.
Vincent Collateral.
Vincent Collateral, baby.
So
cool.
I mean, yeah, as we close, if we wanted to shout out some skips that we wish we could do, like I mentioned just now, like Captain Phillips, I think is a worthy movie to talk about at some point, because I think that if you're just looking at,
What about Sully? Have you ever seen Sully?
I've never seen Sully. I've seen pieces of Sully. That's a solid little movie.
You see him land that plane?
Yeah, he lands the plane. If we're going all the way back to the beginning,
I was gonna say-
Risky Business.
Yeah.
We skipped that. We skipped Cocktail.
We skipped Days of Thunder, too. Big one.
That one, I'm kind of glad we skipped that one, because I've seen clips of I've watched that like on cable, and it's pretty bad.
Days of Thunder, a big Mobley household movie.
Yeah, car go fast.
yeah.
I mean, F1's coming. Maybe
Hiram
we
was
pair it.
blasting that shit.
Maybe we pair it with F1.
House. There we go.
So it was Hiram.
Yeah, it was a Hiram.
That's
movie.
crazy. I mean, we were trying to go easy on ourselves because we were coming off Robin.
Yeah.
So we were skipping some of the.
Yeah, we wanted to ensure a certain
this was
level
guys.
of,
This was a marathon of if we would have spread this out longer, the series.
I think it would have been interesting to watch Bonfire at the Vanities. I've never seen it, and it's it's like a famous misstep right before Hank started doing everything perfect. So that would have been a really interesting one.
What about Rock of Ages?
Hey,
if you're talking like just absolute disasters, just the sloppiest trash.
it's so close. It was so close to being something special, but just not quite. I know a couple people were mad that we didn't do Tropic Thunder. I'm sorry. It's like he's like the sixth billed person in that movie.
Yeah, we can still do it.
Les Grossman, like he's incredible. It's an unbelievable turn from where it's just and everybody's like, guys, Cruise has a sense of humor now, and then like he immediately lost it because he didn't want to do any press or anything as Les Grossman. But
Ben Stiller is on the mind. Severance is on.
Ben
so
Stiller.
it's a Ben Stiller film. I know that there are people out there probably wondering why we didn't do a Green Mile episode or a Turner and Hooch episode.
I can
or
speak to the Green Mile one.
Burbs.
It's because the Green Mile is not a good movie.
Gotcha.
That's the reason why we didn't do a Green Mile episode.
Far and Away is when Cruise and Kidman met. and he plays an Irishman and does an Irish accent. So that could have been something. But we hit all the big ones. I mean, at that point, you start to get either before the cutoff or after the cutoff. The early ones or the later ones. But we did it. We hit everything that we set out to do. So congrats, boys. Until the next one, if we want to tease what we're doing, we don't have to reveal it now, but the plan is to do another bracket. Let the public decide. So we will unveil the details of that bracket at a later time. In a couple months. We're going to give ourselves a little time. We spent a lot of time on this series, so we want to lean back and relax a little bit.
You know what? We did one for you, and now it's time to do one for us.
Right, exactly. So there's going to be some one-off chill episodes. We'll announce the details shortly. But yeah, for now, just stay tuned for an incoming bracket later this year, probably in the summer. Well, you'll get to decide what the next series is. But yeah, in the meantime, please remember to rate and review and subscribe and like and comment and let us know your thoughts on Tom v. Tom, A Tale of Two Toms, Cruisemas with the Cranks, Cruisemas with the Hanks.
Damn it.
I fucked it up on the last time.
Jesus, on the last time.
Tom and Tom again. Join the Discord. Patreon.com/WeBottomMic, $5 a month. Let us know all your thoughts, all your recommendations, all your hot takes. Tune in next week for Oscar predictions and the Central Florida Critics Association Awards deep dive with some fellow critics.
Am I having some special guests?
Yes. And then beyond that, some more special episodes. If you watch the new Marvel slop, Captain America Brave New World, I talked with a friend of the show, Adam, about it on his podcast, Films for Breakfast, and we actually uploaded the video to the We Bottom Mic YouTube. So that's a YouTube video only special, also on his podcast feed. So a little cross pod promo happening here.
Drew, I have great news for you, because that means that now we don't have to watch the new Captain America movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we don't have to see it anymore now. So thank you for that. You're really doing God's work.
Very bad.
Yeah.
Truly terrible movie.
What?
On how many levels?
Multiple. And I am disqualified. My opinion is disqualified for using that phrase.
Ernest likes to comment in a film Facebook group. I saw that you have Flair as like a top commenter in that
also,
group.
here's the thing. What you're commenting in a film Facebook group, like I just have to imagine that the replies back are just the worst things that you
especially for Marvel, man.
So he was talking shit about the movie, and some guy was, and he was like, "Why is it bad?" And he gave like a good list, and he was like, "One character is unbearable on multiple levels," and the guy was like, "If you say the term multiple levels, you're automatically disqualified. Yeah. I'm sure it's a great movie. Me and my stupid son are going to go 7 times.
Me and my large 34-year-old son are really going to enjoy. We're gonna hold each other."
As if somehow me saying that the movie sucks is like preventing him from taking his son to go enjoy the movie.
He's gonna be like, "Sorry, son," as he like spoon feeds him slop in his cage, and be like, "Can't let you out this week."
A random stranger said the movie was bad, so I guess we can't see it.
So we have to go see Baby Girl again. I don't know what to say. It's the only other movie that's out right now.
All right. Thank you, Toms. Thank you, Hanks. Thank you, Cruz, for a great series. We'll see you in the next one. We love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.